RAWCHAA YAHAWAH, BaHa YAHAWASHI, BaHa RAWCHAA QADASH. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is The Beast. Pretty much this lesson comes to the inspiration of a video that Elder Pastor did called, I forget the name of the lesson that he did, but he mentioned that someone should do a lesson on the beast. He said he may do it, you know, so I decided to jump on it. I'm pretty sure the apostle, you know, will do something on it also, because he goes into that topic quite a bit, because that is pertinent to prophecy. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to go into it to explain it and give an understanding of where we at in prophecy, because like the apostle said, you know, you have people that speak about the MOTB, but they have no idea who the beast is. And it's very important to identify this beast to be able to understand prophecy. So what you're looking at in front of you is a map of the European Union. And these are all the current members, all the current members as of June 2016. All right. Now, you can see all the members. They're all European members, you know, because it's a European Union. So these are all Edomite nations that come together. Now, the reason why the EU was created, well, before we get into the reason why it was created, let's go real quick to this word beast. The word beast is one of the lower animals opposed to man, especially a four-footed animal. Also a marvelous creature, a monster, mermaids, werewolves, lamia, satyrs, the beast of the apocalypse. Now listen to this. A brutish or stupid man. And this fits Esau to a T. A brutish and stupid man. Because they are the brutes, the stupid brutes that are set up on the planet, you know, to be ruling in this time, to destroy the earth, and the Most High is going to come back and destroy them. Daniel 4:17. This matter is by the decree of the watchers and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basest of men. So one of the definitions of beast is a brutish or stupid man. In this case would be a brutish or stupid men that are conglomerate one with another, you know, in a particular mindset to set up a particular agenda, which we know as the NWO. Now, when the European Union, which is the beast is NATO, is actually NATO and the EU, but the EU is a part of that. So in this lesson, you know, we're gonna touch on the EU part of it. You know, I should have said NATO and the EU, because NATO is the beast, and the EU members are all members of NATO anyway. You know, should have said it that way. So what we have here is a conglomeration of European nations, which are Edomite nations that came together. Now, this was started after World War II because Europe was war-torn, you know, and they wanted to rebuild, so-called. But really it was prophecy coming to pass. So they had a meeting in 1957 of March in Rome, out of all places, you know, because it's the revival of the Roman Empire, you know. Hold on for 1 second. All right, so this may have to be in two parts, but you know, let's get through as much of it as we can. So this is when it was started. There was a meeting that took place in 1957 in Rome, Italy, and it got its teeth or its charter in January 1st of 1958. And originally it was 6 member states. All right, and UK was trying to get in there, but France kept denying them because of their close ties with America. All right, so they kept pushing them out. So it wasn't until 1980, well, before that, England and Ireland, which is one, joined. So that made it 8. I mean, that made it let me see. You had 6. That made it 7 nations, and there was another one that joined. I mean, you could do the research. There were 2 that joined in the 70s, and the final 2 members, which was, they say it was 3. It was Greece, Spain, and Portugal. Which Spain and Portugal is really one. You know, when Greece and Spain joined, that was in 1986, and that completed the 10, which they said was 12, because they had Ireland as a separate one, and they had Portugal as a separate one, but the UK, that's one, with Ireland, and Spain and Portugal are one. So that made it 10 in 1986, and that is true to prophecy. See, that is true to prophecy. So we already read the word beast, a brutish, stupid man. So let's go into some of this history. European Union. The European Union, EU, is a political and economic union of 27 member states. That's as of now. It says that are located primarily in Europe. The union has a total area of 4,233,255.3 kilometers, which you break it down in square miles, and an estimated total population of about 447 million. An internal single market has been established through a standardized system of laws that applies in all member states in those matters, and only those matters where the state, I got the beast on the brain, where the states have agreed to act as one. And really, I should have labeled this more so the 10 horns of the beast, which I'll change the title, because the beast is NATO, you know. So the Spirit had me go in this direction when I was doing the research. So I'll change the name of the lesson to the 10 horns of the beast. It says, where the states have agreed to act as one, EU policies aim to ensure the free movement of people, goods, services, and capital with the internal market. So this is the cover story, but the real story behind it all is that the Lord is establishing this up to fulfill his prophecies, you know, of this, the beast with the 7 heads and 10 horns. It says, enact legislation and injustice and home affairs, blah 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 blah. All right. Right, so the EU has been described as sui generis political entity without precedent or comparison, with the characteristics of either a federation or confederation. And that's exactly what it is. It's a federation, which is a conglomeration of nations coming together for one particular purpose. And it's really not for the purpose of their so-called economic growth and agriculture and making sure that the workers have a fair share, blah blah, and cut, you know, the taxation between them, and whatever the case they say it was. It's really set up to fulfill the prophecies of the scriptures, which are the 10 horns of the beast with 7 heads. So as we jump down here, the background, it says during the centuries that followed the fall of Rome in 476, which this is important to know, the fall of Rome. They say 476, but it was actually before that. This is important to know because this is prophecy when you understand the scriptures. It goes on to say several European states after the fall of Rome, several European states viewed themselves as translatio imperii, transfer of rule. It says of the defunct Roman Empire, the Frankish Empire 481 through 843, and the Holy Roman Empire 962 to 8 through 1806 were thereby attempts to resurrect Rome in the West. So why were they trying to resurrect the ancient Roman Empire? Because the Lord had that spirit in them and on them. But they really didn't resurrect it because it wasn't resurrected until the so-called Renaissance period under the European or Edomite European nations. And this is why there was no the beast couldn't be healed until the said time of the 1,000 years was accomplished, because that is prophecy. When we go to Revelation 20 and 1, it says, "And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years." All of these labels, all of these names are applied to Esau. It's applied to this beast with the 7 heads and 10 horns. And they were bound for 1,000 years because they were stopped from being able to move about like they were. They couldn't deceive anybody. They couldn't rule. Everything that they did was turned to shit, because the Lord had a spell over them. He had a dark cloud over them for a period of 1,000 years, and cast them into the bottomless pit. This bottomless pit represents Europe, because there are no natural resources as far as being able for people to really what's the word I'm looking for? Nourish themselves, for lack of better words. That's why they got to go to places like India and other places, to import spices and foods and different things of that nature, because not many foods, so to speak, for lack of better words, grow in these areas. So it says, "And shut him up and set a seal upon him." Right. So the seal was what? That he couldn't do anything. There was a dark cloud over Esau for that period of 1,000 years, and they pretty much was stagnant for those 1,000 years upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, because that's what they do. Their whole thing is about deception, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and after he must be loosed a little season. So when was the loosing of the little season? When did that begin? That began during the time of the Renaissance Empire, or the Renaissance period, should I say, which the word Renaissance means back to birth or rebirth. Okay, so going back to this, it says, where thereby attempts to resurrect Rome in the West, this political philosophy of a supranational rule over the continent, similar to the example of the ancient Roman Empire. And this is what they were trying to do. But they weren't going to be able to accomplish that, because this was Jake trying to accomplish this. And the Lord didn't give that to Jake. The Lord said that the beast, when we go to Revelation 13, let's go to Revelation 13 now. And 1, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea." This beast is NATO and the EU. It says, out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. These 7 heads and 10 horns, the 7 heads represent the 7 major empires of Esau, beginning with the Greek Empire. The Greeks, the Romans, the French, the Spanish, Germania Major, Germania Minor, and Britain. That is the 7. That's the 7 heads. And if you go back in history, those are the 7 major empires of Esau that ruled. All right. It says, "And upon his horns 10 crowns." And the 10 horns is a representation of those European nations that were allied to Rome. And back then they had ancient names. Today they have modern names. Okay. It says, "And upon his horns 10 crowns," because this was a representation of actual rulership. So these particular 10 nations are going to be ruling. It says, "And upon his heads the name of blasphemy," because they say that they're the Most High, that they're Christians, and so on and so forth. It says, "And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard." Now there's a reason why it begins with the leopard, because the leopard is a representation of Alexander the Great and the Greek Empire. And that was the origins or beginnings of this beast, the 7 heads. It says, "And his feet were as the feet of a bear." Now it's speaking about the end of the beast, which is going to come by way of the Russians. Now the Russians were never a part of the 7 heads. The only part that they play in it, they're going to play the part of the demise of this beast. And that's why it mentions the leopard, and it mentions the beginning of the beast, and it mentions what's going to bring the end of the beast. It says, "And his mouth as the mouth of a lion." Now the mouth as the mouth of a lion is a representation of Great Britain, because although America is the patsy, the forefront, the one that's in the limelight, behind the scenes, Great Britain is really who's calling the shots, because the Rothschilds are citizens, so to speak, of Great Britain, London. You know, so they're behind the scenes calling the shots from there. But the forefront, or the performer or actor or actress is America. You know, because when you see these actors, all they're doing is acting out something that somebody else wrote for them. See? It says, and the dragon, which is the Roman Empire, and like Elder Pastor says, interchangeable with America, gave him his power and his seat and great authority. Why? Because at this time, when this was written, the Roman Empire was in power. This was the head that was in power at that time, that was wounded. And the Lord was showing this to the Apostle John, but he didn't understand it. Because by the time this was written, this was around the time when the head was about to be wounded, not too long after this. Because it really was taken out around this year, but it really didn't fall as far as the legislative body and, you know, the customs and all that, until around the time of Constantine, which is around 325 AD. That's when it transitioned to the so-called Holy Roman Empire. All right, it says, and I saw one of his heads as they were wounded to death. This was the Roman Empire that was wounded to death. So it received a stroke where it looked lifeless. You know, like remember when the Apostle Paul was stoned, people thought he was dead, so they dragged him out and they threw him. I believe they dragged him out and they threw him outside of the walls. You know, or they might have stoned them outside. They might have dragged them outside of the walls and stoned them outside of Jerusalem, I believe it was. And they thought he was dead. But then his life came back into him. You know, just to give like a small example of that. So the beast laid there lifeless from this wound, right? It says, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. So when the deadly wound was healed, which was around the time of the Renaissance period, all the world wondered after the beast. And why is that? Because the very first thing that the beast did when it was healed was it went around the world to deceive the world. This is where we get Revelation 20:7. And when 1,000 years are expired, what 1,000 years? That 1,000-year prison sentence that the Lord gave them, where the seal was going to be upon them. They were going to be under a dark cloud. They weren't going to be able to deceive anymore. But when that time was expired, Satan, which is this beast, shall be loosed out of his prison, because that was a prison sentence, just like America is a prison sentence to us. It says, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth. So this is the very first thing they did when they came back into power, when they actually when their deadly wound was healed. And that's why once the deadly wound was healed, all the world wondered after the beast, because you had them deceiving the nations, putting up their images as the image of the Heavenly Father, of His Son, of the angels, of the Israelites. And unto this very day, people still laud and praise Esau as the Most High, as YAHAWASHI. That's why when you speak against them, the majority of people have a problem with that, because they are caught under that spell. They're caught under that wonder of the beast. You see? They're enamored with it. You know, and they see the force and the power and the military might that they have, and you know, that's like a perfect combination for a knockout. It says, and they worship the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. Why? Because this dragon, which is the Roman Empire, what happened was when it died for a period of time, came back into power, all of those customs and traditions, so on and so forth, were transferred into this resurrected kingdom. And that's why when you look at the legislative body, the government, and all of that stuff, everything, it mirrors ancient Rome. Because remember, we read in here that they were trying to resurrect. It says, this political philosophy of a supranational rule over the continent, similar to the example of the ancient Roman Empire, resulted in the Middle Early Ages in the concept of renovatio imperii, restoration of the empire. And they didn't restore the empire until Esau got into power during the Renaissance, either in the forms of Reichsidee, imperial idea, or the religiously inspired Imperium Christianum, Christian empire, medieval Christendom, and the political power of the papacy have been cited as conducive to European integration and unity. Why? Because all of these work together in tandem as one to bring forth this power and this deception upon the world. When we go to Revelation 16 and 13, I believe it starts at, it says, and I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon. Who is the dragon? The Roman Empire. And today the Roman Empire would be in the form of America and her allies. It says, and out of the mouth of the beast, which is NATO and the EU, the European Union, and out of the mouth of the false prophet, which is the Roman Catholic Church. All right. And the Roman Catholic Church, the word Vatican, vates, is Latin for prophet. And the Khan at the end goes back to the feathered serpent, which is Kul Kul Khan. Kul Kul is feathered, and Khan at the end is serpent. So the word Vatican means the prophets of the serpent. All right. And that's exactly what they are, because they're pushing that magic upon the world, because the Roman Catholic Church is key in pushing all of those images and idols, you know, of the Renaissance period out there. They're in every Roman Catholic church. All right. So going back to Revelation 13, and they worship the dragon which gave power unto the beast, and they worship the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, and who is able to make war with him. Right. Because through America and NATO and the EU, that is a powerful military, you know, and there's not many nations that can come against that. That's why Russia and China have to come together with Iran and other major powers out there in order to be able to defend themselves against this great force. And this is the great force that we read about in Revelation 12 and 9 that's going to make war against YAHAWASHI, against Michael, against the angels, you know, and they're going to lose miserably. It says, and there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. And that's all they do. They say in God they trust, but when you check them out, really they don't. It says, and power was given unto him to continue 40 and 2 months. And they did, because that 40 and 2 months breaks down to 3.5 years, which really is prophetic for 350 years. And you have to remember that after that 350 years of slavery, that the whole mindset of Jake really started to change even more, because prior to that, Jake was waking up knowing that they were Israelites, but that was just among Judah, Benjamin, Levi, you know, because the Lord said he would raise up the tabernacle. He said he would raise up Judah first, the tents of Judah first. Then the other tribes would come in. So it wasn't a coincidence that after that 350-year period, right then and there, when these devils set up their Apollo flight missions, you know, the Lord started bringing them down financially, morally. Everything started decaying, and the truth started to be being taught out there of the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel waking back up again. That wasn't a coincidence. It says, and he opened his mouth in blasphemy against the Most High, to blaspheme his name. That's why he calls him God and calls him different names, and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. Yeah, and that's why you see all these paintings of so-called white images of the Heavenly Father, his Son, the angels, and all of that. And if you dare question it, they'll label you a racist. They'll label you bugged out. They'll label you a conspiracy theorist. How dare you question this? God is white. It says his head and his hairs were white. How dare you? Because that's been ingrained in the minds of these people going all the way back to the Renaissance period. So it's going to be hard to erase, you know, 400 plus years of that deception out of people's minds, unless the Spirit of the Lord causes his Spirit to move in you, and you have that seal of the Lord, which spiritually goes in there and gets rid of all of them parasites of deception out of your system. So it says, and it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and they did that, and to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. And that's why America, which is the revival of the Roman Empire, and the EU, NATO and the EU, have this sway and power over the world. It says, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, and that's what's happening, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Yeah, so that's pretty much what it is. So they're caught in that web. So this whole situation is a conglomeration of nations coming together as one for a particular purpose. So when we go to Revelation 17:3, it says, so he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet colored beast. This woman, which is also called a harlot, is America. How do we know that? We jump to the 18th verse. And when the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. So who reigns over the kings of the earth? America, barred none. All of her policies are pushed all throughout the planet. Every nation out there that has any type of status in the world, they rocking like America's rocking. They got rappers in every language. They got singers in every language, R&B and all of that. They got McDonald's and all of those different businesses and restaurants that are here in America. Anything that's popular in America is popular over there. It's popping over there. Sit upon a scarlet colored beast, because it's red, scarlet, red, crimson, same thing. Inside joke, the same thing part. So scarlet is red. The scarlet colored beast are these European nations. These are Edomite nations. The reason why it calls it red and scarlet is because of Esau being red. Full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And they keep speaking about the 7 heads and 10 horns, which is the 7 major empires of Esau and 10 other kings that will be ruling jointly with them. And then you have, on a broader sense, you have NATO, which is a representation of the beast. See, NATO and the EU. It says, and the woman was arrayed, let me just jump up to the 7th verse. It says, and the angel said unto me, wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carrieth her, which have 7 heads and 10 horns. So the angel, you know the angel is them? He's breaking it down to the Apostle John, but the Apostle John really didn't understand it back then, because it was just his job to write it down, because it wasn't meant to be broken down back then. It was meant to be broken down today when these prophecies are being fulfilled. So it says, the beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. So this beast is talking about America, that was and is not, and shall ascend out. Because it was in John's vision, he saw it, but it wasn't time for it to appear yet. The Lord was just showing him a glimpse into the future, right? It says, and ascendeth out of the bottomless pit and goeth into perdition. So now let's go from there to the book of Revelation 11:7. It says, and when they shall have finished their testimony, meaning when Jake went through their captivity and slavery, the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit, which is America, the ancient Roman Empire being revived again, shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. And that's what happened. You know, because when these devils came into power, they put hell on Jake. And even now, even after after slavery, they so-called freed the slaves, but it's just as bad. The only thing is that in the mind of Jake, they believe that they're free because they don't have the shackles around their hands and feet. You know, they're not in the cotton fields, but you're still in the cotton fields in these different businesses. Who do you think you're working for? You're working for the bankers who have other flunkies working under them. All right. So going back, the beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. And the reason, from the moment that America was conceived and made alive here on this side of the world, they started to, down that path of destruction, to perdition, because this place is going to be the biggest example going to be made known to mankind of what it is when you're wicked, and the penalty for being wicked. It says, and they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. Yeah, so when America comes into power, the ones that are going to get taken by her allure, and that admiration and that deception, are the ones that are not a part of the elect of the nation of Israel. It says, and here is the mind which hath wisdom. So when you read, and it says the angel fought against, the dragon fought against Michael, Michael fought against the dragon and his angels. And you read up above that, it tells you that dragon has 7 heads and 10 horns. When you read Revelation 17, it's explaining to you what these 7 horns and these 7 heads and 10 horns represent. But even still, at that point, it's still hidden from the eyes of these people out here. It says, and here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. So these 7 mountains are 7 governments of this beast. And America is sitting on all of them, because they're all in power right now, but they don't have the empire power that they had back then, because that empire power is in the hands of America right now. And she's manipulating them. Look, NATO is supposed to be a thing where all nations come together, which America's a part of, and they're supposed to, whatever decisions come up, they're supposed to vote on them. And the whole thing, democracy, the majority rule, but that's not the case with this. Whatever decision America makes, that's final. It doesn't matter if 3/4 of the European nations are against a particular thing, and a quarter of them are for it. If America is in the quarter portion, America, whatever decision that is, that's going to stand. It's been done over and over and over and over and over and over again over the years. That's why eventually these nations are going to get mad at America, her own allies, and shoot fire on this hoe. Because this whatever you want to call it, of America, this place is the most wickedest empire ever on the planet Earth, and the most deceptive. Nothing they say they hold to, unless it benefits them. So it says, on which the woman sitteth, and there are 7 kings. It's letting you know that it's 7 rules, 7 empires. Because a king rules over what? Rules over realms, empires. When you had the Greek Empire, what did you have? You had kings sitting on the throne. When you had the Medo-Persian Empire, you had kings sitting on the throne. When you had the Assyrians and Babylonians, you had kings sitting on the throne. These are empires. So these 7 heads, which are 7 mountains, 7 governments, or 7 kings, which is a representation of rulership. 5 are fallen, because by the time John had this vision, some of these empires were under the rule of the Roman Empire, which were the Greeks, the Spanish, the French, Germanian Major and Germanian Minor. They were under the rule of the Romans. Now you had those barbarians that weren't, but they didn't have an empire. Their thing was all scattered. They were nomads. But the parts of the empire that were so-called domesticated, so-called set up for trade and business and all that, those were ruled by the Roman Empire. It says, and one is, because the one that is who? The Roman Empire, which is in John's vision. And it still was in power at the time when John had this. And then probably not too long after this, that's probably when Domitian, got moved out of that position, put to death. And the other is not yet come. So who is the 7th that had not yet come? That's the British Empire. And they were a force to be reckoned with at one time. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space, because they didn't rule for that long. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the eighth, and is of the seventh, and goeth into perdition. So America is the eighth horn. When you read Daniel the 7th chapter, that little horn in Daniel the 7th chapter, that's America. This eighth head of the beast is America, because she came out of all of those seven. All right, and goeth into perdition means goes into destruction. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings. These are 10 realms that are being ruled in Europe right now, which have received no kingdom as yet, but received power as kings 1 hour with the beast. Yeah. So that's that. Let me just write something down that came to mind. All right, just something that I want to check into. All right, it says, these have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast, because they're all going to come together for one purpose, and that's to destroy this place. It says, these shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, which is the EU, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire, because her own allies are going to burn her, because she burns her allies. She makes them drink of that cup, making them think that they're going to get a fair share, but they never do. For the Most High hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, because it tells you that the heart of the king is in the hands of the Lord, and he'll turn it wherever he wants to, just like the course of water. It says, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, unto the words of the Most High shall be fulfilled. And that's the thing. Everything is happening because the Most High's words are being fulfilled. So this conglomeration of these nations, which started off with 6 and then extended to 12, they say, but it really was 10. I believe it was Denmark and Great Britain that were added to it. No, I forget. Like I said, I was watching it earlier, going through some of it earlier. But, you can get the specifics, And then later on, it was Greece, Spain, and Portugal, which Spain and Portugal is one. So 1986 is when the 10 were cemented. It began in January 1st of 1958 with the original 6. And then in 1986, all 10 of them were sealed there. Okay? And we looked at the word beast. Right, and the word beast means a brutish or stupid man, because that's why the Lord represented him as a beast. Because a beast is stupid and brutish, and all it knows is destruction. You get in his path, it's going to destroy you. That's why, let's go real quick to the book of Ecclesiasticus. I believe that's 12. Ecclesiasticus 12, and just bear with me 1 second. Right. 12 and 13, is it? Right. Who will pity a charmer that is bitten with a serpent, or any such as come nigh wild beast? So this is a wild beast. So if you get in bed with this wild beast and you get stung, then that's on you. Nobody gonna pity your ass. You shouldn't have been fucking with that beast. And then Ecclesiastes 13 and 15 says, every beast loveth his like, and every man loveth his neighbor. This is why you have this beast with the 7 heads and 10 horns, and they're all the same people. Even though this is talking about actual beasts, but they are beasts, and they resort with each other. You don't have Moabites and Ammonites and Hamites and Elamites and Ishmaelites all up in the NATO and the EU. Because they resort to their own like. All right. So I put this in the description box. You brothers could read, through it. But those are the main points. I have also here Satan's Angels Exposed by Salem Kerbin. I'm going to read a little excerpt out of it. This is page 227, the Common Market and the Trilateral Commission, which is chapter 28. And when you go to the page 200, and 28, you see a picture of the headquarters of the EU in Belgium in the shape of a so-called peace symbol, which is nothing more than a broken cross. So it says, you are looking at the Common Market headquarters in Brussels, Belgium. Antichrist, quite possibly as many antichrists, could become the head of this union of 10 nations. Turn the page, you will note the building is shaped in the form of a stylized cross, right? All you gotta do is type in EU or Common Market headquarters, Brussels. So when we go to page 229, it says, although the Roman Empire was broken, as prophesied by Daniel chapter 2, the empire will continue to rule until the time of the end. The major wars from 1000 AD to the present time have been wars involving Roman Empire nations. David Weber, editor of Gospel Truth, observes, in 1957, 6 nations joined together in a trade agreement called the European Economic Community, or the Common Market. When the headquarters for the Common Market were erected in Brussels, Belgium, 10 flagpoles for the flags of 10 nations were erected in front of the building. This was in accordance with Bible prophecy. Okay? So then it goes on to say the 6 charter members were Belgium, France, the Netherlands, Italy, West Germany, and Luxembourg. In 1973, Henry Kissinger urged Common Market members to appoint 4 more member nations. Norway, England, Denmark, and Ireland were proposed for membership. Norway, however, backed out. It was not until 1979 when the 10th nation was accepted, Greece. Okay, so the one thing it said 1986, it says here in 1979, which was 10. So I have to go back and double check that, but here it says 1979. Another source that said 1986 is when all 10 were actually there, which made so-called 12. All right, so that's pretty much it on that. So this has been the beast. Like I said, I'm going to change the name, the 10 horns of the beast. You know, and I know Elder Pastor said he was going to do a lesson on the beast itself, NATO, you know, and the EU. So I mean, I don't know if the apostle's going to still do it, if the Spirit jumps on him or not. But Lord's will, you know, this was edifying. Brother Gabar YAHAWAH said the Club of Rome preceded the EU as well. Yeah, that's right. The brother GMSInfoDoc said Denmark joined in 1973, Apostle, along with the UK, Ireland. Okay, so it was Denmark. All right. All right. So pretty much, you know, with that, you know, I pray that your brothers and few sisters have been edified. To the next time I say shalom.